It is claimed that the pharaohs had their corpses mummified because they believed the soul was immortal, but this is not very convincing. It's dead and gone. Why do you still claim that the soul is immortal when you can experience it? The soul is not immortal or anything. The soul is consciousness. It is a type of electrical, magnetic current energy. Once the consciousness leaves the body, the work is done. Keeping consciousness alive can postpone death. I have explained how this happens. The goal is, in a sense, immortality, but how? The Egyptians received their knowledge of anatomy from the Sumerians. The advanced races seen as gods in Sumerians, most likely Babylonians, had important knowledge about creation. Because we see the first story of birth without a father in Babylon. When we read the sections of the Sumerian tablets regarding creation, we understand that they had mastered DNA information. I'll give an example of this without getting too off topic. The story of fatherless birth, which we first saw in Babylon, was referred to as Tammuz, son of Semiramis, greater than Enki, son of Ninmu in Sumer, greater than Horus, son of Isis in Egypt, greater than Jesus, son of Mary in Rome. If you ask me, there is such an important event that happened, but it was told with different heroes in different cultures. Our topic was the relationship between the mummification technique used by the Egyptians and fatherless birth. With today's technology, we can bring a clone of a deceased person back into the world by taking a DNA sample from them, combining it with sperm in a laboratory environment, and placing it in the mother's womb, or by creating it entirely artificially. These are possible with 21st century technology, but unfortunately they cannot be implemented due to pressure from religious circles. I recommend you to watch the movie, Womb, about this. The purpose of mummifying the pharaohs was to prevent their bodies from completely dissolving away, so that one day clones carrying their own DNA could be brought back into the world. Because it is impossible to recognize a corpse buried in the ground centuries later. The cloning technique has been banned in the world. Is there anyone who questions why it was banned? As always, the CIA and the Vatican have prevented these studies, but if you can be one of the elite, you can have your own DNA cloned after your death and ensure that an exact copy of you comes back to this world. This is another way to achieve immortality. Although later versions of you, through inherited genetic predispositions, will live almost the same life you did, they will have difficulty adapting due to time and environment change. Is it worth a try? I think it is. It is truly a tragedy that those wretches who believe that the soul is immortal desire a spiritual life after the material world. What they are doing is just wasting their time. Let me tell you this information and more has been known by the elite for thousands of years. In other words, some people have ancient knowledge, but since the system needs obedient slaves, this information is kept secret. Because it is not easy to exploit people who are conscious. Ordinary people are unaware of what is happening because of the pressure and hypnosis applied by politicians and religious brokers. Because the task assigned to them is, produce, work and die for the system. One day we will understand that the real God, the powerful one, is ourselves, if only we could wake up.